Hi, I'm Kevin, Communications Specialist with the North Little Rock Public Library System. And today we're going to talk about something that's absolutely fascinating to so many people. It's trains. Trains from the past in North Little Rock, trains presently, and also model trains because Crooked Rails is coming in December, and we want you to know all about that too. So if we're going to talk about trains, we need to have an expert. And I've got an expert today, that's Craig Gerard, and you may recognize him from the Laman Library. He's been here for a long time. Craig is an expert on trains, model training, and more, and I cannot wait to pick your brain about this. I'm really excited about it. So, first of all, first question I have, it goes back into history. Trains in North Little Rock. North Little Rock, they have said, or I've heard said, was really built upon the railroad. Is that true? And if so, can you explain how?
That is true. Years ago, in the 1870s, the St. Louis, Iron Mountain, and Southern came through North Little Rock and went all the way to St. Louis. Later, it became the Missouri Pacific Railroad. Missouri Pacific had huge yards in North Little Rock that still exist today as the Union Pacific yards, the junk shops.
Okay. I didn't realize that Missouri Pacific had its roots. It all came from here, that big railroad did.
Part of it, yes.
Okay.
And this was their main shop for many years. And it's one of Union Pacific's main shops outside of their other shops in Omaha.
When did Union Pacific take over?
1982.
Oh, wow. You do know the exact date. Wow. Also, too, as I understand, and I've just kind of dabbled in some of the history and looked at it, Memphis was a big spot.
Yes.
And so it was very important to get rail lines from Memphis to here.
The Rock Island going from Memphis to here for many years. And they had passenger trains and freight trains. The old Rock Island station is now part of the passenger station, is now part of the Clinton Library in Little Rock.
It's interesting because there is a Rock Island station that's still around too in North Little Rock that is just off Broadway. I can't remember the exact street it's on. But if I remember correctly, you correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, I talked to the North Little Rock Heritage Center, and they said that at one point in time, we had 14 passenger and freight stations in the North Little Rock area, and that's the only one that's still standing.
Yes, it is.
Wow, that's cool. And I'm wondering about this too, because I would see things about trains and on the schedules. They would say the train was coming to Little Rock, but they would say north of Little Rock, not North Little Rock, but north of Little Rock. So, was bringing those trains in from Memphis and or St. Louis or wherever they went, was North Little Rock a better destination because there weren't as many bridges across the river? Is that why?
That's part of it, yes.
Okay. What was the rest of it?
Just that it was the first stop before you hit Little Rock, once you got to the Pulaski County area. And it was just easier. And then with the junk shops there, future junk shops, the Missouri Pacific yards for the Missouri Pacific trains, they could be worked on if they needed to up in North Little Rock.
How many railroads are around besides Union Pacific today that were a part of what happened in North Little Rock? Are there any more?
Well, there's Union Pacific now, which wasn't a part of North Little Rock until the merger in 1982. Rock Island went bankrupt in 1980, unfortunately. That was an integral part of Arkansas history. Mm-hmm. In Northwest Arkansas, there's still the Burlington Northern Santa Fe. And then in Northwest Arkansas, there's the Missouri and Arkansas Short Line Railroad, which is also a passenger tourist railroad from Van Buren to Springdale.
So there's still a few around.
Yes.
Okay, another question here I have a curiosity about also is in 1927, there was just a horrible flood.
There was.
That flooded the Arkansas River, and there was a rail bridge, and people could cross it to the Bering Cross Bridge.
Yes.
Where was that located?
That was located somewhere between Broadway and Main Street, I believe, and it got washed out in the flood. They put some freight cars on the bridge to try to stabilize it, but it didn't work, and it got washed away.
So are there still cars in the bottom of the Arkansas River?
I assume there are. Yes.
Okay. It's something for us to explore another day.
They're in bad condition after all these years.
Yeah, I bet they are. It's very fascinating. It's interesting, too, because my family, my grandfather was a conductor on the Rock Island Railroad at one point in time. He was also a depot agent, and I've still got his train watch, and I'll have to show that to you some other time. I'll have to show you, but it's a very fascinating history. How impactful, and I know this is a very broad question when I say it, but back in the day, because You think about airports now, that's how people get around. But then the trains were basically the same type of thing. How much impact did that have on our community?
A big impact. A lot of people worked for the railroad, and a lot of businesses depended on the freight business from the railroad to get goods shipped to and from North Little Rock. Mm-hmm. So it was much more impactful then than it is now.
Right. I mean, we didn't have freeways then.
No, we
roads
didn't.
were 2-lane and sometimes not the best of conditions.
That is correct.
What years were the peak of the railroad?
In the 1920s and 30s, I'd say, were some of the peak years of the railroad. Now, we used to have trolleys in North Little Rock, but those shut down about 1936.
Okay. Were those electric?
Electric, they were electric.
They were? Okay, because I'd seen
there were
pictures
three
of
separate lines
horse-drawn trolleys
in North Little Rock. And then the Little Rock trolley shut down Christmas Day, 1947.
Right, okay. And there's a line that was, some of these rails that went through North Little Rock are now walking trails, specifically the one I'm thinking about that goes through Levy and goes towards Camp Robinson.
Yes.
And I understand that at one point in time, I think there was a president. It may have been Franklin Roosevelt that was on that. Do you have any information about that, or?
No, I don't remember on that one.
Okay, yeah, but they had troops there, and there was a story of a president that went down that line. I just can't recall which one.
Oh yeah, they used to be able to access Camp Robinson by rail until they shut it down. Now it's a walking trail.
Yeah, let's transition into models, because as much as we wish some of these trains are still around, they're still here. We still see the UP and see the other ones that come through, but modeling, people always kind of had a fascination about trains. Did they start models?
Yes. Actually, Ives Trains was one of the first model train companies in the U.S. They came before Lionel. Lionel started about 1900, and by Joshua Lionel Cohen, and they had both standard gauge and O gauge trains, as did Ives, and then American Flyer out of Chicago was also a major model train manufacturer. HO trains didn't come along until years later.
Right. When you are a collector and you're looking at things that are back then, are you more interested in, or even now, interested in the smaller or the larger gauge?
I tried HO for 5 years when I was a child. It didn't work out well. So then I switched back to O gauge, and I've had O gauge trains ever since.
What got you into it?
I was interested in model trains. My father had a Ives train from about 1925 that still ran when I was a child, and got me interested to it. Also, spending my first 14 years in Chicago, that was a railroad town as well. And then moving to North Little Rock, I was still interested in trains and kept my model trains. And I've got a Ives 1925 set that still runs in my collection.
I remember when we were kids, it was not uncommon to get a train set.
It was
for Christmas. You get a train set, and they were really cool and neat. And like, what kind of is? If I wanted to start, or if I wanted my kids to get involved, can you still go out and do that?
Yes, you can. There's a hobby shop in Jacksonville, Rail and Sprue, that sells model trains. There's Hobby Town in Lakewood Village that sells model trains. And there's Arkansas Traveler Hobby in Ball Knob that sells model trains.
Is it an expensive hobby to do?
It can be an expensive hobby. It depends on how much you want to go into it and how elaborate you want to set up your layout. I live in a condominium, so I'm limited in space. My wife gives me the guest bedroom to set up my train.
Hey, at least she's willing to do that. It's very magical to me, and it brings out a lot of memories, because we've had trains at the Laman Library in the past. And when my boys were small, they would come here and look at the trains. And I had one, Jacob, that was just fascinated by trains.
Yes.
And so to see the crooked rails come back again and do the trains is just really, really interesting.
Yes, it is.
As a person that's going to go watch these trains, what do I need to look for, other than just being caught up in the magic of it? What do I need to look for in that?
Well, they'll have probably both steam models and diesel models. Most model trains these days are freight trains. 9 out of 10 sets and locomotives sold are freight trains. Mm-hmm. People don't model the passenger trains as much as they used to. About a third of my trains are passenger sets. I still like the old pre-Amtrak passenger sets.
So very, very rare stuff. Why do they not do passenger trains?
Because Amtrak took over passenger service in 1971.
Right.
A lot of people who are younger and don't remember the passenger trains before 1971.
Craig, we can talk about this all day. I mean, I'm totally fascinated about it, but time is limited, unfortunately. Thank you very much for joining us today. And if you'd like to find out more information about train history in North Little Rock, you can talk to Craig. Of course, he's here at the library a lot, but you can also come check out our train exhibits throughout we're going to start this in the first part of December. And check out our social media pages, our YouTube channel too. You'll find out more videos about this. We have train books too. We've got all kinds of things to check out. But whatever you do, don't miss crooked rails when they come to town. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you for being a part. Craig, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Kevin.
I'm Kevin from the North Little Rock Public Library System.